Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for August 26th, 2025. Today, we're going to start off in Utah, where a mental health counselor in Provo was arrested after two of his clients accused him of pressuring them to take off their clothes and, in one case, do handstands, all justified as therapy. One of the accusers told police that Shawn Talbot, 55, used the guise of mental health therapy on several occasions to convince her to take off clothes or on other occasions to pull them up. The therapist allegedly justified the untoward requests as necessary to show the victim could be vulnerable, according to court documents. Therapists hold a position of profound responsibility and are entrusted with the care and well-being of their patients. When that trust is violated, the harm is devastating, said Alyssa Wood, who is representing the two women. Police believe there may be other potential victims. They've asked that anyone else who was allegedly subjected to such requests by Talbot to come forward and speak to the police. In a probable cause statement, investigators noted that Talbot did not deny any of the allegations levied against him. He insisted they were intended to be helpful, as these actions took place in a therapeutic practice and were meant to empower the victims. The probable cause statement also noted that Talbot was fired from his job at Utah Valley Counseling on June 30th following an unrelated essay allegation and multiple complaints of harassment from his female coworkers. The Salt Lake Tribune examined Talbot's licensure and found that even after his firing, his license remains active on state websites and no disciplinary actions are attached to his name. Similar allegations to the current ones were made against him in 2020, but by underage girls at a residential mental health facility, Alpine Academy, according to Provo police. This article hit a little close to home for me because I actually received therapy through Utah Valley Counseling for over a year, not from Shawn Talbot. It was actually from Adam Moore, who I believe is the director of Utah Valley Counseling. As far as I know, he is an active Mormon, but he is the first person who ever encouraged me to not go to church or to shop on a Sunday so that I could see that I would still be a good person if I did those things. Now let's go to the Salt Lake Tribune, where it says, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints recently took a big step forward in one of the world's tiniest countries. Nauru, a remote island in the South Pacific of barely 8 square miles, recently issued a certificate of registration authorizing the establishment of the Utah-based church in the nation. Following this milestone, we have commenced the process of setting up operational infrastructure, including the establishment of bank accounts and coordination of humanitarian aid efforts, Rich Hunter, the faith's spokesperson in the Pacific area, explained in an email. Why am I not surprised that those things were listed in that order? The importance of the money handling with a bank account, and then possibly something about humanitarian aid. The article goes on to say, a small congregation of the church meets regularly in Nauru, and the church's registration is a cause for great joy for our local members. The island of 12,000 people, about 1,500 miles northeast of Australia, is home to more than 130 Latter-day Saints. The next step, according to Hunter, is a supplemental permission that would allow church leaders to perform government-recognized ceremonies and rites, such as marriages. We anticipate receiving this approval in the coming weeks, Hunter said. The Nauru branch was formerly reorganized August 3rd, a previous church news release noted, with Hiroshi T as its leader. Now we're going to go to the Deseret News, but not to read an article from there. A former Deseret News journalist was charged Friday after allegedly enticing a minor who turned out to be an undercover law enforcement officer. According to court documents, Joseph Brent Walker, 70, attempted to entice a person he believed was a 14-year-old female into participating in inappropriate activities with him. The 14-year-old was actually an undercover latent police detective. Floodlit.org says Walker was a Mormon bishop in the early 1990s in the Bountiful area of Utah. Floodlit is trying to determine the name of the ward of which Walker was bishop. In 1993, Walker was second counselor in the Bountiful Utah Orchard Stake presidency, according to the Mormon Church's 1993 Directory of Officials. Floodlit owns a copy. thanks to your donations. For 3 years, Walker worked for the LDS Church's Public Affairs Department. Walker wrote numerous articles for the church-owned Deseret News, including a weekly syndicated column called Value Speak, in which he discussed traditional values. Walker is also listed on Deseret Book as a co-author of a biography of deceased Mormon apostle M. Russell Ballard called Anxiously Engaged. The inside of the book jacket says, about the author, Joseph Walker began his professional writing career at the Deseret News and has since held numerous public relations positions, including 3 years with the Public Affairs Department of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In 1990, Walker launched Value Speak, a weekly syndicated column that examined contemporary issues from a traditional values perspective, which has appeared in more than 200 newspapers nationally. Now we're going to go to Facebook and the Tremonton, Utah classifieds, where it says, is it normal here for people to not wear garments throughout the week and only on Sunday? Where I am from, churchgoers wear them faithfully. Just wondering if I missed something moving to this small town. I see a lot of the same people that I see at church throughout the week without garments on, and I'm wondering why they think it's okay. This post, as of yesterday, had over 400 comments. This person is backed up by the leaders of the church in their musings, though. The official LDS handbook has the following question and information about garments in the temple interview questions. It says, this question is omitted when interviewing a member who is not endowed. Do you honor your sacred privilege to wear the garments as instructed in the initiatory ordinances? Read the wearing the temple garment statement included below to each member. Wearing the temple garment, the First Presidency has provided the following guidance on wearing the garment. The garment of the holy priesthood reminds us of the veil in the temple, and that veil is symbolic of Jesus Christ. When you put on your garment, you put on a sacred symbol of Jesus Christ. Wearing it is an outward expression of your inner commitment to follow him. The garment is also a reminder of your temple covenants. You should wear the garment day and night throughout your life. When it must be removed for activities that cannot reasonably be done while wearing the garment, seek to restore it as soon as possible. As you keep your covenants, including the sacred privilege to wear the garment as instructed in the initiatory ordinances, you will have greater access to the Savior's mercy, protection, strength, and power. All those Tremontonians possibly running around without the great access to the Savior's mercy, protection, strength, and power. What scandal. Now let's listen to Sharon Eubank in a speech she gave on February 15th of 2024 and compare her words with Prophet President Russell M. Nelson's words. First, Sharon was born in Redding, California. She served as a full-time missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Finland-Helsinki mission and received a bachelor's degree in English from Brigham Young University. Early in her career, she taught English as a second language in Japan, worked as a legislative aide in the U.S. Senate, and owned a retail education store in Provo, Utah. Since 1998, Sharon has been employed by the church's Welfare and Self-Reliance Department. In 2011, she was named the director of the church's humanitarian work worldwide. From 2017 to 2022, she served as first counselor to President Gene B. Bingham in the Relief Society General Presidency. Today, she continues as the director of humanitarian services, which has expanded to include the Perpetual Education Fund and Just Serve. Now a portion of her speech.
I'm occasionally asked, why doesn't the church spend more money on humanitarian work? Why don't we stop building expensive temples and focus the resources on relieving poor people?
That is a great question.
That's a legitimate question to ask the Church of Jesus Christ. But is it money that solves society's ills? The world has poured $2 trillion into addressing chronic issues in Africa. Why isn't the situation any better? The reason is because money isn't the real issue.
That is a bit reductive for her to say that. Money is an essential tool for addressing many problems, such as poverty, hunger, and lack of medical care. While it is not the solution, it is almost always part of the solution. True solutions require a combination of resources, money, empathy, systemic change, and human effort.
Lasting progress comes through trusted relationships, through infrastructure, reducing corruption, and the ability of people to work together. And money doesn't necessarily create those things. They have to be developed alongside the money and the resource. And frankly, it's a lot harder work.
But it does involve money. Always.
I will never discount the one thing that this church does that lifts entire communities in rapid development, because it invites men and women of all social classes and all backgrounds to enter into a sacred building and make the most binding, important promises of their mortal lives.
And every single one of those people, to be worthy to enter into that building, has to give 10% of their income to the Mormon Church.
In those buildings, they promise not to steal or lie. They promise to be faithful to their spouse and their children. They vow that they'll seek the interest of their neighbor and be peacemakers and become devoted to that idea that we're all one family. We're all valued and alike unto God. And if those promises made in holy temples are kept, it transforms society faster than any aid, any development project ever could. The greatest charitable development project on the planet is for people themselves to bind themselves to God and mean it.
But wait. President Russell M. Nelson, God's mouthpiece on earth, said while speaking to the people in Africa in October of 2018, "We preach tithing to the poor people of the world because the poor people of the world have had cycles of poverty generation after generation. That same poverty continues from generation to another until people pay their tithing. It is living the law of tithing that will break the cycle of poverty. Those who live this law will join the millions of faithful members of the church who bear solemn and joyous testimony that the Lord keeps his promises to those who love him and keep his commandments."
So thank goodness that the church builds 335 temples and counting. It's the greatest poverty alleviation system in the world. The most important thing that you can do as a humanitarian is to keep your covenants with God. And the second most important thing you can do is to connect in goodness with the people around you.
I guess their words aren't as contradictory as I first thought, though, because Russell said that people will get out of poverty when they pay tithing, and Sharon said they will get out of poverty when they attend the temple, and they have to pay tithing to attend the temple.
I'm occasionally asked, why doesn't the church spend more money on humanitarian work? Why don't we stop building expensive temples and focus the resources on relieving poor people?
So, I guess the answer to that question is because the Mormon Church, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, believes that the poor, to get out of poverty, need to actually just give their money to the church. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "You abandoned yourself to keep the connection. As a child, you needed love more than truth. So you hid your true self. You learned to be quiet instead of honest, pleasing instead of angry, strong instead of scared. This wasn't strength, it was survival. You learned to abandon yourself to avoid being abandoned by others." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.